What's up everyone, Brad here with the Money Dad channel. In this video I want to talk about the stock HITI, that's stock ticker HITI, and it's not HITIF anymore because they're listed on the NASDAQ now and that stock ticker changed, right? It's not a OTC stock anymore like when I made that last video on them. So if you're holding HITI, you should check your broker to make sure that those shares transferred over and now should be listed as HITI. There's a lot I want to go over in this video. We're going to talk about some news, some financials, the earnings call coming up, and some technical analysis. There's a chart pattern shaping up on this chart, of course. I mean, because that's what we do on this channel, right? We look at chart patterns. So I want to get into that, but I'll save that for the end because all of these pieces that I just listed there kind of tie in and lead up to where I think this chart pattern is going and why. So I've got the website pulled up. It's just hightideinc.com. Go check it out yourself. They got lots of good information on there for investors, and I mean, if you want to be a customer, I mean, you know, whatever you do in your own time, you know. But let's jump into the news. That's why I'm at the website. Let's scroll down here and you can see the latest news right here. This article, this is a big one. This is why HITI is up today more than 3% on a day where, you know, there's some red, there's some green. It's a little mixed. Let's see actually. The S&P 500 is up about 1/3%. Small caps are up like less than 0.5%. So you know, while the overall market is just marginally up, HITI is up more than 3%, and I saw earlier they were up more than 5% on the day. There's a reason for that. Good news came out today, and that is right here. HITI continues to expand U.S. e-commerce presence through acquisition of Daily High Club. This is great to see. I love seeing companies that I am invested in use their cash or whatever means they can to acquire other companies and keep growing that way, and kind of use those synergies to make their primary company even better, right? So that looks like what they're doing here. Basically, they bought a U.S. company for about $10 million. So they are expanding their footprint in the U.S., which is great, and they're expanding their e-commerce footprint as well, which is fantastic. So you know, the big reason why I like this so much is because I do think eventually during this presidency we are going to see some kind of legislation come out that is going to make the cannabis industry, the marijuana industry, you know, some form of legalized, right, during this presidency. And I think a lot of these U.S. based cannabis companies, publicly traded companies, are going to do very well. These stocks are going to do very well when that happens and going forward after that. So HITI being a Canadian stock, they just purchased an American company that increases their exposure to the American customer base, and it also helps out for when that legalization comes. It's going to help this stock price out as well, I think. So you can see they've got all of these statistics listed here, which they feel, you know, helps their company, right? They're exposing their HITI brand to a ton of new people through this acquisition of Daily High Club. You know, over 15,000 subscriptions, 800,000 followers on Instagram, 75,000 followers on TikTok, $10 million in net revenue, and over $1 million in profit during the last 12 months. So look, they spent $10 million to acquire this company. This company makes $10 million in revenue a year. So pretty good use of money there. And on top of that, all the synergies that I was just talking about, right? You got all of these customers of Daily High Club now being exposed to HITI. So should be a really good synergy there. Great news coming out today for HITI. That's why their stock is up now. It looks like they're up over 4%. So that's the big news. The other news from earlier this month, if you weren't already tracking, I already talked about it at the beginning of the video. They were listed on the NASDAQ. They were listed right around the beginning of the month. I think it was like 1 June or 2 June. So you can see their stock price climbed all the way up to about 10 bucks in anticipation of that listing. It has since sold off. It came all the way down to about $7. You can see it found some ground there, and it now looks like it found that ground. It kind of bounced off that support at that $7 range, and it's starting to head back up. We're now at about $8.40. And it's looking really good for this stock chart. All right, so we talked about the news. We talked about why I think this stock chart is kind of doing what it's doing a little bit, right, from the NASDAQ listing. Now let's talk about the financials, because this company looks really good from a financial standpoint going forward as well. I'm going to pull up the financials in TradingView and look at these bar charts right here. You can see back in 2017, HITI, its revenue, it was sitting at about $7 million. In 2018, it was $6 million. 2019, $23 million, shot up pretty high there. And then in 2020, shot up again to $62 million. Now, they're not a profitable company, and that's why the stock is so cheap, but the revenue is there. It looks really good. And if you look at it on a quarterly basis, let's go to the income statement so we can see that trailing 12 months of revenue. So you can see these are the years that I just listed. 2020 was 62 million. The trailing 12 months is at 84 million. So we're still ticking up. It's looking really good for their revenue. I'm not too worried about them not being a super profitable company yet right now, because they're still very much in that growth phase. They're taking that cash and buying other companies like we were just talking about, right? They just spent $10 million to acquire a Daily High Club, which is fantastic. They're using the cash that they're making from operations and from investing to reinvest in themselves to keep growing. So I would rather them do that with their money right now than to turn profit, honestly, because I know that when they reinvest in themselves, that's going to pay larger dividends later. All right, it's kind of like that snowball effect, just like your stock account, right? You keep reinvesting in it, it's going to keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger. Instead of, if you make 5% and take that money out, well, it's never going to grow again. But if you keep putting money in, keep putting those profits back in, it will keep growing bigger, right? It's the same concept with companies using their cash that they're getting from their operations to acquire other companies or expand, build more stores, things like that. So that's going on with the financials. It looks really good in my opinion. Not profitable, but growing very nicely. Okay, so I want to talk about this earnings call and this stock chart pattern now. This earnings call is coming up on 28 June, which is, I'm recording this video on Friday. The market is about to close here in about an hour, and then on Monday they're going to have an earnings call. So in one business day, they're going to have an earnings call, which, who knows which direction this stock is going to go when that earnings call hits. It's very hard to predict for any company, let alone the smaller companies, right? They can swing wildly. So if I had to guess what was going to happen on Monday or Tuesday, I would say, don't know which direction it's going to go, but I would guess it's going to swing pretty wildly after that earnings call. If it's Monday after the market closes, then we'll probably see that swing on Tuesday. If it's Monday before the market opens, then we're probably going to see that swing on Monday. And I would just expect it to be a pretty volatile day in either direction, which the customer or the investor is going to interpret that earnings call either very good or very bad. And based on that information, they're going to be buying or selling the stock a lot. So just be prepared for that. Expect that to come. There is a chance that it could not swing wildly, but I think there's a pretty high chance that it's going to swing pretty hard in one direction. So with that said, looking at this chart pattern, we're kind of in the middle of this consolidation phase right now, right? You see this overhead resistance kind of coming down, it's declining, and then you see this underneath support is staying consistent at that pretty close to $7 range. So I would like to see this stock break out over this resistance, this kind of ceiling right here, break out, come back, retest it, get a good test of support now that we're over it, and then take off to the races to the upside. In order for that to happen, we pretty much need a good earnings call here on Monday, and that could send us up and above through this resistance. We might get as high as 10 bucks, which would be, that'd be pretty nice. I don't think it'll happen in a day. It could take, a week or 2 weeks to get up to 10 bucks before we come back down, swing all the way back down to maybe $9, touch this line right here, should act as support there until we head back up again, kind of curl back up, and then take off to the races to should be a pretty good level. I can measure out a price target here for us right now during the video. This is how we do it. We take the first touchdown inside of this consolidation, right? So this is the first touchdown. You measure from there all the way up to the top, the resistance, the overhead resistance. Looks like we have a channel of about $5.30. So we're going to take that $5.30 and we're going to measure it from wherever we think we're going to touch this line as support. So if we think this kind of comes up to $10, comes back down, hits $9, and then heads up, if we think it's going to touch right about there, then we take our ruler, and maybe we think it touches around here at this $9 range. We're going to go right there. We're going to add $5.30 to the upside, and that's kind of gonna be my expectation for this chart pattern going forward, which means I have a price target if we break out. This is a big if, guys. We have to break out above this line. Okay, so I am making this price target of $14.30 on high tide, which is currently trading at $8.45. So you're talking about $6 of upside on an $8 stock, 75% upside. Huge potential. But the big if, the big caveat here is we've got to break above this blue line first. Okay? If we break down, and worst case scenario, we break below $7, it could get ugly for this stock. I don't think that will happen because all of those things that I just listed earlier in this video indicate to me anyway that this is a good investment going forward. So I would project to the upside on this stock, much more likely to happen than a downside risk. But it's the stock market. Nothing's 100%. I can't predict what's going to happen. I just play with probabilities here. And I think that we have a high probability that this is going to happen. We're going to break through this blue line. We're going to probably come up to about 10 bucks. We're going to retrace, test this blue line, come down to about $9. It's going to act as support. It's going to be our floor, and then we're going to take off to about $14.30. Okay, so that's what I've got. Maybe none of that happens. This is a stock chart pattern. Like I said, it's not 100%, but when I see these kind of consolidation wedge type patterns play out, this is how they play out more often than not. This is the most common way that they play out. You see that breakout above that overhead resistance, and then it'll come back and test it and then shoot up from there. So that's what I would like to see with high tide. I am invested in high tide. I think it's a great company. The earnings call, I hope, goes very well on Monday. But we'll see. Okay, so that's what I've got for high tide, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button for me. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. I do stock chart pattern analysis like you just saw in this video here. I do a little bit of fundamental financials, things like that. I've got some how-to videos on the channel if you want to check those out. If you're just getting into investing, a lot of how-tos on there, and I've got a lot of other stock predictions if you want to check those out that I've done in the past that have done pretty well. So yeah, that's what I got. I'll see y'all in the next video. Have a good one.